The secret life. What if you learned at 49 that your husband has been lying to you for 20 years? What if the life you thought was ordinary actually wasn't ordinary at all? The story I'm about to tell today will show you how the truth can remain hidden. Are you ready? Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. My name is Catherine Kate Morrison. I'm 49 years old and live in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been married to my husband Richard for 22 years. We have 2 children, Emily, 20, studying at university, and Michael, 18, who just finished high school. I'm an ordinary housewife, living comfortably on Richard's income from his accounting business. Our life has always been orderly and calm. Richard goes to work at 7 every morning and returns at 6 in the evening. On weekends, he plays golf and has poker nights with his friends. The same routine for 22 years, never changing. I stay home, tend to my garden, read books, and meet with friends. A perfect suburban life. Or so I thought until the day I opened Richard's wallet. Everything started last Thursday. Richard had forgotten his wallet when he left for work. I ran to the car to try to catch him, but I couldn't make it in time. I returned home and left the wallet on the table. But I was curious. I decided to look inside to see how much money there was. Maybe I'd need to bring him money for lunch. When I opened the wallet, I saw normal things: credit cards, driver's license, a few photos. But something caught my attention. On Richard's driver's license, the name wasn't Richard Morrison. It said Richard Coleman. Coleman. Our last name was Morrison. What was this? I looked at the credit cards. They also said Richard Coleman. There were even cards I'd never seen before. It seemed like he had withdrawn a lot of money. The strangest thing was in the wallet's secret compartment. There was another driver's license there. This time it said Richard Thompson. A third identity? Also, there was a photo of a woman I didn't recognize in the wallet. Beautiful. Blonde, about 35 years old. Who could she be? When Richard came home that day, I asked him about the name on his driver's license. He acted very surprised. He said there must be a mistake. He said he'd go and get it corrected tomorrow. But I wasn't convinced. That night, after Richard fell asleep, I checked his wallet again. The surprising thing was this: the driver's license was back to normal Richard Morrison. The Coleman name had disappeared. How was this possible? Maybe I had imagined it, but I remembered the Coleman name very clearly. The next day, after Richard left for work, I did a detailed search of the house. Maybe there were other clues. I tried to open Richard's computer in his office. It was password protected. I tried a few things, but couldn't open it. Then I started going through the filing cabinet. Most were documents related to accounting work. But I found strange things in the bottom drawer. There were different passports. Richard Morrison, Richard Coleman, Richard Thompson. 3 different identities. All with Richard's photo. What did this mean? Why did my husband have 3 different identities? Also, the passports had travel stamps. But Richard had never told me he'd been to these countries: Italy, France, Switzerland. Dozens of trips in the last 5 years. He constantly told me he was going to work. But was he actually traveling to other countries? In another file, there were bank statements, but these were accounts I'd never seen. Swiss banks with millions of dollars. Where had Richard gotten so much money? This wasn't possible with an accountant's salary. The most shocking thing was the file at the very bottom. Inside were photos of other women, not just that blonde, but 5 to 6 different women. Under each photo were notes: Maria, Rome, Svetlana, Moscow, Yuki, Tokyo. What was Richard's relationship with these women? But there was something even stranger. Among the files, I found very odd documents, chemical formulas, encrypted messages, strange number sequences. What could these be? Wasn't Richard an accountant? Also, in a small notebook were strange notes. Operation Blue Sky, March 15th, Target Alpha, Moscow contact. Phase 2 initiated. These seemed like military terms. What could Richard's business be with these? In the bottom drawer were very strange devices. Small electronic devices, hidden cameras, encrypted phones. These were things I'd seen in spy movies. What were they doing in Richard's house? That day, I waited for Richard with very confused emotions. When he came home, I didn't say anything to him. I needed to investigate more first. But that evening Richard's behavior was very strange. The phone kept ringing. He was talking secretly. He kept going to other rooms to talk. I tried to listen to one phone conversation. I listened at the door crack. Richard was speaking in a different language. It sounded like Russian. When had he learned Russian? Also, he looked very tense. He kept looking out the window, closing the curtains. Late at night, he left the house. He said there was an urgent business meeting. But what meeting happens at 11 p.m.? The next day I got up early in the morning. I wanted to find out where Richard was going. I did a more detailed search of the house. I found strange things in the garage. There were cars with different license plates, all from different states. I thought Richard only had one car. What were these other cars? In the trunk of one of the cars were very interesting things: guns, fake documents, cash. This was very scary. Why did Richard have guns? In the afternoon, when Richard came home, he acted very strangely. He started questioning me. He asked where I'd been, who I'd talked to. This wasn't like him at all. He hadn't behaved this way in 22 years. Also, he started checking if there were any changes in the house, as if he suspected someone had searched the house. That night, he slept very restlessly. He kept waking up, listening to sounds. I was starting to get scared too. Who was Richard becoming like this? The next day, I decided to hire a private detective. But when I went to Tom Bradley, something very strange happened. Tom seemed to know me. He called me Kate Morrison without me telling him my name. I asked how he knew. He was also surprised, said he didn't know. I told Tom the situation. I said Richard might have a secret life, that he had different identities, that I'd found strange items in the house. Tom became very serious. He said this situation could be dangerous. If Richard was doing spy-related work, this could be very risky. He said he would investigate, but would be very careful. He said it would take 1 week. That week was very difficult. Richard was acting stranger and stranger. Even when talking at home, he was whispering, as if he thought we were being listened to. Also, he started asking the children strange questions. He wanted to know who they talked to at school, what they were asked. Emily and Michael were very surprised. Why was their father so curious? One day Richard never came home. Late at night he sent a message. A business trip had come up. It would last 3 days. But it was very suspicious. He had never traveled so suddenly before. I took that opportunity to do a more comprehensive search of the house. I even listened to the walls, looking for secret compartments, and I found it. Under the floorboards in the bedroom was a hidden safe. The safe had an electronic lock. I tried many times, but couldn't open it. Then it occurred to me. Richard's birthday, the children's birthdays, our wedding anniversary. None of them worked. Finally, I tried something very simple. 1234. And the safe opened. Inside were incredible things. Dozens of passports, millions of dollars in cash, gold bars, diamonds. But the most shocking were the documents. CIA, FBI, KGB logos. Was Richard working for spy agencies? The documents were very complex, encrypted, but I could understand some of them. Richard was a double agent. He was working with both American and Russian agents. For the last 20 years, he had been stealing and selling secrets from different countries. This was incredible. Had I been married to an international spy for 22 years? But the most terrible thing was this. My marriage to him was also part of this work. He was using me to maintain his American citizenship. Were the children also part of this plan? Did he want them to create a fake family image? This thought made me very sad. Did Emily and Michael's father really love them? 3 days later, Richard returned. I tried to act normal, but it was very difficult. He was also very tense. He was constantly checking around. His phone was constantly ringing. One day I saw him get very angry while talking on the phone. He was saying the operation was in danger. Then when he saw me and the children, he had fallen silent. But I could see he was very worried. A week later Tom called. We needed to meet. He had very important information. When I went to Tom's office, he had prepared files full of information. He revealed shocking truths to me. There was no such person as Richard Morrison. This was a completely fake identity. His real name was Richard Coleman, and he was a professional con artist. According to Tom's research, Richard had been doing this work for the last 25 years. He lived in different cities with different identities. In every city, he married a different woman. He used these women, stole their money, then disappeared. But my situation was different. He had been with me for 22 years. This was a record for him. Why had he stayed so long? Tom's theory was this. I had been a good cover. Maintaining a respectable family life had served his purposes. What about the other women? Maria, Svetlana, Yuki. Tom had investigated them too. They were all women Richard had married in different cities. He had lied to all of them, deceived them all. He was currently married to Maria in Rome. He was engaged to Yuki in Tokyo. He was living with Svetlana in Moscow. Polygamy? How was this possible? Tom explained. Richard was a very clever con artist. He used different identities in each city. He married with fake documents. He constantly changed cities under the pretext of business trips. He told each wife he worked somewhere else. With me in Nashville, he was Richard Morrison. With Maria in Rome, he was Richard Thompson. With Yuki in Tokyo, he was Richard Coleman. This was incredible. How had he been able to carry out such a deception for 22 years? Tom continued. Richard's main income came from swindling these women. He had gained access to all their bank accounts and stolen their money. But he hadn't touched my accounts. Because I was his main base. He didn't want to lose me. What about the children? Was this con artist Emily and Michael's father? Tom had researched this too. The children were really Richard's children. He had even had DNA tests done. But Richard probably had other children too, from the other women. I was devastated by this information. Was my 22-year marriage completely a lie? Tom explained my options to me. I could go to the police. Richard would be arrested, but this would be a very big scandal. Or I could quietly separate, file for divorce, and stay away. Or I could confront Richard, tell him I had learned the truth. I asked for time to think. That night, when I returned home, Richard was acting normal. He was talking to the children, watching TV. It had been like this every night for 22 years. But now everything felt fake. For a week I thought about how to act. Finally, I decided I would confront Richard. But first, I wanted to do a little more research. I learned Richard's exact schedule from Tom. Richard was going to Rome on Monday. He would see Maria. On Wednesday, he would fly to Tokyo. He would meet with Yuki. Using this information, I made a plan. Monday morning, Richard said he was going to work. But I followed the airport. He really flew to Rome. Wednesday, he caught the Tokyo flight. Friday evening, he returned home. He told me he had had a tiring work week, but he had spent time with 2 different wives on 2 continents. Saturday evening, I decided to talk. The children were at friends' houses. We were alone at home. Richard was watching TV in the living room. I sat next to him. I told him I knew the truth. 3 different identities, other wives, swindles. I knew everything. Richard first tried to deny it. He said he didn't understand what I was saying. But then I pulled out Tom's files. I showed him the photos, the documents. Then Richard's face changed. He realized he was caught. There was a long silence. Then he started talking. He confessed everything. That he really was a con artist. That he had been doing this work for 25 years. But he said he really loved me. That he had stayed with me the longest. That he had been happy for 22 years. I asked why he had deceived the other women. He said it was for money. This was his profession. That he was very good at it. That he hadn't been caught. But it was different with me. He had really seen me as a wife. This seemed very ridiculous. He had deceived me too. Lied to me too. Richard started apologizing. He said he wanted to quit this work now. He only wanted to be with me. I said I didn't believe him. How could he quit work he'd been doing for 25 years? Then Richard made a very surprising offer to me. Let's run away together, he said. Let's gather all the money and go to another country. There were $50 million in Swiss accounts. We could live anywhere in the world with this money. We could take the children too, he said. Let them come too. This was madness. Was he suggesting we run away with stolen money? I said no. He had stolen this money from innocent women. I couldn't accept this. Richard insisted. These women already had a lot of money. He said he hadn't harmed them. But I was determined. This money needed to be returned. That night, I was afraid Richard would do something else. But he didn't do anything. He had given up. The next day, I called the police. I told them everything. I gave them Tom's files. The police acted very quickly. They arrested Richard at work. The news was very big. Headlines like 25-year con artist caught, man with 6 wives. The children were very shocked. Learning that their father was a con artist was very difficult. Emily came from university. Michael was also very upset, but both supported me. Richard's trial lasted months. Finally, he got a 25-year prison sentence. The other women also joined the case. Maria came from Rome, Svetlana from Moscow, Yuki from Tokyo. All our stories were the same. Richard had deceived all of us. But the most tragic thing was this. We had all really loved him. Maria had been married to him for 10 years, Svetlana for 8 years, Yuki for 5 years, me for 22 years. Richard had played with our real emotions. During the trial, Richard's real story came out. His real name was Robert Wilson. As a child, he had grown up in very difficult conditions. Without mother, without father. At 15, he had been on the streets. He had started con artistry to survive. Over the years, this work had become his lifestyle. He didn't know how to live any other way. But the judge said these weren't excuses. He had ruined dozens of women's lives. After the sentence was finalized, I visited Richard in prison. I wanted to talk one last time. He told me he was very sorry, that he really loved me, that he was regretful. But it's too late now, I said. I had lived with lies for 22 years. What would I tell the children? How would I explain that their father was a con artist? Richard wrote a letter for me to show them. He was apologizing, saying he loved them. After that visit, we never met again. Now 2 years have passed. I'm trying to rebuild my life. I moved from Nashville. There was too much gossip. I started a new life in Atlanta. The children came with me too. Emily is finishing university in Atlanta. Michael also started high school here. Both are seeing a psychologist. It's difficult for them to get over this trauma. I'm also getting therapy. It's not easy to digest 22 years of lies. Sometimes I question myself. How didn't I notice? Were there signs? My psychologist says there are very clever con artists. Richard was very professional. Also, I loved him. Love can be blind sometimes. Now, I'm trying to make new friendships. But I have trouble trusting every man I meet. I suspect. I wonder, is he lying too? This paranoia might pass with time. I hope so. But I learned one thing. We can never fully know anyone. Even the people closest to us can keep secrets. Richard played the perfect husband and father role for 22 years. I never suspected. The truth can be hidden so well that we don't need to be blind not to see it. This is my story. At 49, I learned that my 22-year marriage was completely fake. My husband was a con artist, had 6 wives, had stolen millions of dollars. But the story doesn't end here, because something very strange happened last week. While shopping in Atlanta, a man approached me. He was an FBI agent. He wanted to talk to me. There was new information about Richard. I went to the agency's office. They revealed a shocking truth to me. Richard wasn't just a con artist. He was also accused of international espionage. For the last 10 years, he had been stealing state secrets from different countries. That's why he constantly traveled. My marriage to him was also part of this work. He had used me to maintain his American citizenship. The children and I would be taken into FBI protection. There could be danger from Richard's partners. So the story still wasn't over. Richard's lies were even bigger. After learning this information, I was even more shocked. Had I lived with an international spy for 22 years? The FBI agent told me this. Richard's real identity is still unknown. Maybe Robert Wilson is also fake. His real name, real past, real nationality, none of it is certain. I had lived with a complete ghost of a man for 22 years. Now we've been taken into the protection program. We'll live in a new city with new identities. The children are very scared. So am I. But in a way, I'm relieved. At least I know the truth now. Whoever Richard is, he's no longer in my life. What do you think? How is it possible to live with lies for 22 years? Can people play such big games? Share your thoughts in the comments.